What if the most reliably dangerous person you'll ever encounter isn't like a villain with bad intentions?
Right.
What if instead it's actually a highly educated, perfectly confident guy who genuinely thinks he's a great person?
Yeah, I mean, it sounds totally counterintuitive, doesn't it?
Hmm.
But when you really look at the architecture of trust and how we decide who gets access to our inner lives, that exact profile emerges as this massive hidden hazard.
Welcome to the deep dive. For you listening right now, we've got a stack of source material today that is, frankly, going to completely upend how you think about intuition, boundaries, and danger.
Oh, absolutely.
We're looking at this fiercely thought-provoking essay that deconstructs the actual mechanics of trust, like why we give our trust away, why it's so often misplaced, and why our physical bodies usually recognize a threat decades before our conscious minds catch up.
It is such a phenomenal text to dig into. Just to set the stage for you, the author is writing specifically about the dynamics between women and men within patriarchal cultures. But the underlying mechanics of what we're talking about, how human beings evaluate safety and character, they apply to all of us.
Right. It's about trust architecture overall.
Exactly. And just a reminder, our goal today isn't to take a political side or, tell you what to believe. We are here to act as your guides through the author's framework. We're going to lay out these concepts, unpack the psychology behind them, and just let you grapple with the ideas yourself.
Okay, let's unpack this.
Yeah.
Because to even begin to understand the author's warning about who we should and shouldn't trust, we have to completely redefine a word we throw around every day. And that word is ignorance.
Yes. The essay is titled, I Do Not Trust Ignorant Men, but the author's definitely not talking about someone who, failed a geography
No,
quiz.
not at all.
The text makes this very sharp distinction right away. A man can hold a doctorate, be widely respected in his field, and still be profoundly, dangerously ignorant. Ignorance, in this framework, has absolutely nothing to do with a lack of trivia or formal education.
Wait, so it's not about lacking data. It's not like an empty hard drive.
No, not at all. The author defines this specific type of ignorance as the absence of inner reckoning.
Absence of inner reckoning. Okay, let's translate that for a second. What does that actually look like in practice?
Well, think about someone who has never just sat with themselves in a quiet room and honestly interrogated their own flaws. It's the person who has never examined their own anger.
They just let it fly.
Yeah, they treat it like an inevitable force of nature, like the weather. Because they haven't interrogated their assumptions, they constantly mistake their own subjective perspective for objective reality.
Oh, wow. So if they feel comfortable, they just assume the situation is inherently fair.
Exactly. They mistake their personal preferences for universal law.
I was trying to visualize this while reading. It made me think of a computer analogy. Ignorance here isn't like an empty hard drive waiting for files. It's more like a corrupted operating system that genuinely believes it's running flawlessly.
Right. It doesn't even know there's a glitch.
So it just confidently goes around the network, overwriting everyone else's files, assuming its code is the only code that actually matters.
That is the perfect way to look at it. What's fascinating here is the psychological weight the author assigns to this behavior. This kind of ignorance isn't passive. It doesn't just sit quietly in the corner minding its own business.
Right? It actively imposes itself.
Yeah, the author points out that this ignorance reaches, it interprets, it names things. When this person walks into a room, maybe a boardroom, maybe a dinner party, they actively impose their unexamined reality onto everyone else. And the text delivers this incredibly piercing line to describe it.
Oh, I know the line you're talking about.
Yeah, the author calls this the specific texture of patriarchal ignorance. It is ignorance that has never been inconvenienced.
Ignorance that has never been inconvenienced. That line literally stopped me in my tracks.
It's so powerful.
Because it implies that society doesn't just tolerate this blind spot, right? It accommodates it. Society acts as a cushion so this person never actually feels the friction of their own flaws.
Exactly. The world bends around them so they never have to bend themselves. And that brings us to the core warning of the essay. The author outlines a very specific profile that thrives in this environment.
The confident, ignorant man.
Right. He doesn't know he's ignorant, and crucially, he is consistently rewarded for it. Socially and professionally, he is praised for projecting the appearance of knowing.
But if society is rewarding him, and he genuinely thinks he's just being this confident, capable guy,
Yeah.
what happens to the people who get close to him?
Well, the essay describes the danger he poses as, quiet and erosive.
So it's not some dramatic movie villain blowing up a building.
No, it's the kind of danger that wears a person down over years or even decades until they can no longer even locate the original self that existed before they met him.
It's death by 1,000 paper cuts.
Exactly. And the author explicitly notes that these men aren't necessarily malicious. They can actually be quite kind, as long as that kindness doesn't cost them any of their comfort.
Right, or require them to compromise their worldview. But I hear this, and my immediate thought is, isn't dangerous too strong a word?
That's a fair question.
Because if you are listening to this, you probably know guys like this. They aren't acting out of malice. They might even believe they're being helpful by taking charge or being decisive.
Sure, yeah.
So if someone is just a bit unself-aware and overly confident, why is the author classifying them as one of the most reliably dangerous things a woman can encounter?
Well, the text answers that by forcing us to look at the collateral damage of absolute certainty. The author argues that this man is dangerous because he has a fully formed opinion about everything, including the woman sitting right in front of him.
Right.
But he completely lacks what she calls the interior musculature to hold that opinion loosely.
Interior musculature, meaning he literally doesn't have the emotional strength to admit he might be wrong.
Precisely. He has no capacity to question his own judgment. The text says that he will be wrong about you, comprehensively wrong, but he will never know it.
Because it will literally never occur to him to ask.
Yeah, he cannot tolerate the vulnerability of uncertainty. And the true tragedy here, according to the author, isn't the harm done by people who intentionally set out to hurt you.
Right.
It's the harm done by someone who cannot conceive of themselves as a source of harm at all.
Because if you can't even conceive that you're causing harm, you can never apologize. You can never change your behavior.
Exactly.
If you try to tell this person, hey, what you did hurt me, their corrupted operating system just rejects the file. They calmly smile and explain why you're misinterpreting things.
And over time, that completely erodes your trust in your own reality. You start gaslighting yourself because their certainty is so immovable.
Which opens up this massive, glaring question. If these confidently ignorant men are so erosive, why are they getting past our radar in the first place?
Right. Why do intelligent, discerning women continue to invite them into their lives?
Yeah, why give them trust at all?
The author identifies a brilliant and insidious cultural trap here. She notes that women often extend trust to these men because they see the man's potential.
Oh, the potential trap.
Yes. They look past the rigid certainty and see some latent wound or undeclared softness. And they make a critical error. They mistake a man's underlying need to be seen as actual evidence of his readiness to be seen.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Because the author doesn't shame the women for doing this. She points the finger squarely at cultural conditioning.
Oh, entirely.
The essay states that women are actively trained from childhood to nurture the latent, to midwife the undeveloped. They are literally taught to be the invisible labor force for other people's emotional growth.
Society practically hands women a hard hat and a shovel and tells them their highest calling is to excavate the emotional depth of the men around them.
Right, and the author is staging a fierce, unapologetic rebellion against that conditioning. She forces us to rethink what trust actually is.
She frames trust as an energetic disclosure.
Meaning it's not just a warm, fuzzy feeling. It is a literal transfer of your own vital energy and vulnerability.
Yes, it is a lowering of your drawbridge. And the analysis here is profound. Offering that kind of deep, sacred vulnerability to someone who has no interior musculature is not a virtue.
Because they are entirely incapable of receiving it safely.
Right. Society might applaud you for being so giving, but the text calls it exactly what it is: self-abandonment dressed as openness.
Self-abandonment dressed as openness. Think about how often we see that. How often our culture frames extreme self-sacrifice, especially for women, as some kind of noble virtue.
It's everywhere.
The text says, a woman's trust is not a growth medium for a man's eventual enlightenment. I love that. Your trust is a sacred resource. It belongs where it will be met and matched.
Not just endlessly consumed by a black hole of potential.
Exactly. But you hit on the real dilemma earlier. If the societal training is so entrenched, if there is this constant loud pressure to ignore red flags and focus on potential, how do you break the spell?
What defense mechanism do you even have left if your own intellect has been conditioned to make excuses for these guys?
Yeah. And the essay argues that the ultimate defense mechanism isn't in your head at all, it's in your body. There is a knowing that lives in the physical body long before it ever reaches the conscious mind.
The author is incredibly specific about this. She doesn't just say, trust your gut. she describes the exact physiological responses.
A contraction in the chest, a dull, heavy pressure in the solar plexus.
Yes, a barely perceptible dimming of your own energy when you are in the presence of this unreckoned, ignorant confidence. The body acts as a highly sensitive radar system.
But what exactly is the radar pinging on? Like, if the guy is smiling and acting perfectly polite, what is the body actually detecting?
The text uses a fantastic metaphor for this. The body is tracking a real-time mismatch between the territory and the map.
The territory and the map.
Right. The map is what this confident man believes to be true about reality. His unexamined assumptions, his certainty. The territory is actual reality.
And your body senses that massive gap.
Exactly. It senses that his map is completely divorced from the territory, and it's sending up a flare warning you that if you step into his map, you will get swallowed.
Okay, let me pause and challenge this because I can absolutely hear a listener pushing back right now.
Oh, for sure.
Someone might say, isn't a tight chest just anxiety? How do we know this physical reaction is some deeply accurate radar and not just the listener being overly defensive?
Right, maybe you're just closed-minded and don't want to hear a perspective that challenges your own.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a very common pushback, and the author anticipates it perfectly. Her response is completely uncompromising. She insists that when her body contracts in the presence of that specific kind of arrogant certainty, she is not being closed-minded, she is being accurate.
Accurate, wow.
And the text introduces a crucial concept here: somatic discernment.
Somatic meaning relating to the body, so physical discernment.
Exactly. In patriarchal cultures, women are systematically trained to override this physical knowing. If they feel a contraction in their chest, they are taught to tell themselves, oh, I'm just being crazy.
I'm misreading the situation. He's a nice guy. I should just be polite.
Right. And overriding that physical alarm system just to be polite has cost people years of their lives.
That's the real tragedy.
Reclaiming that somatic knowing, actually trusting that physical tightness in your chest over the social pressure to smile, is described in the text as a vital survival technology.
The author actually goes as far as calling it an act of decolonizing the feminine interior.
Yes, which is such a striking phrase.
Decolonizing the feminine interior. That is a heavy, powerful concept. Let's make sure we translate exactly what she's getting at there.
Absolutely.
What she's really saying is that society has literally planted an outpost in your brain, a little societal landlord that constantly monitors your reactions and tells you to be accommodating.
To make the man comfortable, to doubt your own discomfort.
Yes, and decolonizing means evicting that landlord. It is taking back the sovereign right to trust your own physical warning systems, no matter how much the culture demands that you ignore them.
So we've painted a pretty intense picture here. We've got this stark warning about the erosive danger of ignorant men, the corrupted operating systems, the trap of midwifing their potential.
And the absolute necessity of treating your body's red flags as gospel. A listener could easily walk away thinking, has the author just completely written off men entirely?
Right, is this just a manifesto for total isolation?
Exactly, but the text explicitly says that is not the case.
Not at all. The author makes a point to emphasize that this is not a document of despair. She states very clearly that she knows men who carry what she calls genuine knowing.
And they are distinct.
Yeah.
They're recognizable. Yes,
Yeah.
the essay provides the antidote. It gives us a profile of what this real knowing actually looks like.
And what struck me is that it's not about finding a guy who can quote feminist literature or who always says the perfectly curated political phrase.
Right. The traits she looks for are so much deeper and quieter.
The primary trait she identifies is how they listen. These men listen in a way that costs them something.
Meaning it's not performance listening.
Exactly. They aren't just nodding their heads and waiting for their turn to speak while secretly holding on to their original opinion.
Right. Listening costs them something because they allow the other person's reality to genuinely shift their own perspective.
They possess the incredibly rare ability to say, I don't know, and use it as an honest, grounded position rather than a defensive deflection.
And the text uses a really beautiful, haunting phrase to describe how they got to this point. It says, these men have sat with themselves in the dark.
They've done the inner reckoning.
Exactly. They have looked squarely at their own failures. They have examined their contradictions, their inherited damage, their unearned privileges, and they haven't looked away.
They haven't demanded society build a cushion for them.
That distinction is the crux of the whole essay for me. The difference between the dangerous, ignorant man and the safe, trustworthy man isn't intelligence. It's not about degrees on a wall.
No. It is entirely about the willingness to experience oneself as unknowing and having the courage to let that experience teach you something.
And the text points out one final crucial behavior. When these men meet a woman who knows more than they do about a topic or who challenges their map of the territory, they don't feel threatened.
They don't try to talk over her or diminish her, they lean in.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the author's ultimate bar for trust isn't perfection. She isn't searching for a flawless, fully enlightened human being who never makes a mistake.
Right, but she's making it abundantly clear that trust is never unconditional. In fact, she argues that unconditional trust isn't actually trust at all. It's surrender.
Wow. Unconditional trust is surrender.
Trust is something that can only be extended cautiously, with your full physical and mental discernment online. You extend it to people who don't just take up space by default, but who actively earn that space, moment by moment.
Earn space through their attentiveness and their willingness to be inconvenienced by reality. Earning space rather than assuming it belongs to you. That is a massive paradigm shift.
It really is.
As we bring this deep dive to a close, the core takeaway that keeps echoing from this source material is about the true nature of boundaries. The author is making a powerful case that withholding your trust from the unreckoned, from people who refuse to look at their own shadows, is not an act of bitterness.
No, it's not the wound speaking, as she puts it. It's not a trauma response. It is an act of deep, fierce integrity.
It is the alignment of your inner knowing with your outer expression.
By withholding that trust, you are simply refusing to perform a warmth you don't actually feel, just to serve as social currency for someone who hasn't built the capacity to safely steward it.
Discernment is not a punishment. The author views this kind of strict boundary setting as the ultimate act of love. It's love of self, it's love of the truth, and it's a demand for real connection over the cheap, exhausting performance of it.
True trust lives behind a door, and the only key to that door is honest self-reckoning.
If the person standing outside hasn't done the work to examine themselves, the trust stays firmly on your side of the door. And there's absolutely zero shame in that.
Not a single degree of shame.
So what does this all mean for you, listening right now? We've unpacked the corrupted operating system of the uninconvenienced mind. We've looked at the quiet, erosive tragedy of the confident, ignorant person.
And we've talked about the absolute necessity of trusting that tight feeling in your chest when someone's map doesn't match reality.
The author focuses heavily on how we allocate our trust to others based on their capacity for inner reckoning. But I think her framework begs a profound, almost uncomfortable question for all of us, regardless of who we are or how we identify.
I totally agree. If the fundamental prerequisite for being a safe, trustworthy person is the ability to sit with our own failures in the dark without looking away, when was the last time you truly allowed yourself to be inconvenienced by your own ignorance?
We started this deep dive talking about the danger of people who think their internal map is flawless. Maybe the ultimate goal isn't just learning how to spot their corrupted code.
Right. Maybe the goal is finally trusting yourself enough to navigate the dark, unmapped parts of your own interior without needing society to cushion the blow.
That is where the real inner reckoning begins. Something to mull over until next time.